Last week was the initial class for this series, and I was talking about the cultivation of our practice, the deepening of our practice, and mentioning that that's what these classes were about. They're really not beginner classes. They're for people that are trying to work with or are trying to maintain a daily practice and to help guide us, to help strengthen the practice. I'm delighted that you all want to come back and attend more classes. We also talked about intention, about the importance of attention in cultivating our practice, and that we really needed to stay connected with that intention. There's always the videos are available on YouTube if you have a class and there's some things that you want to clarify. You can always go back into the video or ask me. I'm really hoping to really allow us to build off of each class here. We have the fundamentals of the practice. We have the fundamentals of the practice. It's really now the development of and the cultivating of and the deepening of. Going into the mystery of what this life is, what this experience is. And the mystery of life, the mystery of being alive, the mystery of being present. And really making use of our time, really making use of our day, not just filling up our days with running around in circles or running around in circles in our own mind, but really using the gift of the day and the gift of our intelligence and the gift of our presence to really connect with and understand and deepen our experience of this life. We really have a marvelous opportunity each day to work with that. So this is what we're cultivating. This is what we're moving towards. A friend of mine, my partner's close family friend, one of their close family friends, he passed away today, and he was 97 years old. And I didn't know him that well, but I knew him well enough. And it's just those moments in time when somebody passes away and you look at, wow, that's a life. That's a life that began, moved through all of these things, and then the form is gone. That life form, that particular person in that form is gone. It's like, wow, that's something. That's really something to contemplate. In the books by Carlos Castaneda, the Don Juan books, if there's any old hippies in the room. He talked about using death as an advisor. That fact that the body is here, the body, and then it's here, and then it's gone. And it's not, I'm not saying this to make you sad. It's a miracle. It's this great, great mystery. And so we're trying to figure it out, aren't we? We're trying to work with it. We're trying to make sense of ourselves and our conditioning, and we're trying to make sense of this thing called life. And the more we're able to, with this path, I believe, the more that we are able to train the mind, to develop the mind, to develop that ability to look past thought, mental content, emotion, form, then we are allowing ourselves to open up to that deeper mystery. And in that, there's a tremendous, tremendous joy that comes from that. And things can start to make sense in a different kind of way that they didn't make sense before. We're constantly grabbing on to that which is changing. We're constantly identifying to that which is changing. But is there more to the story? One of the ways in is, and we've talked about it a lot, is in the meditative path, in the Buddhist meditative path, is sensation, is working with sensations, is working with the body, is working with the experience of the body, and going deeply into that. It's like we're scientists and we're looking through a microscope. What is this life form? What is sensation? What is awareness of sensation? And in the Vipassana tradition, especially in the Mahasi Sayadaw tradition from Burma, we spent a lot of time working with sensation. And the focus on sensation, the development of awareness of sensation, can take us to a place of a real deep seeing into the moment, into consciousness, into the moment of consciousness, into awareness, into this moment. It's like we take, because we have so much information all the time that we're working with, dealing with. And if we come and we bring our attention right down to the point of contact between consciousness and sensation, it can reveal very deep truths. And that's the Vipassana model, if I may. That's the Vipassana model, is working with sensation. And working with sensation, there's a few things. One is it gets us out of our thinking process. Gets us away from thinking. Because instead of putting our attention on the mind, on thought, where our attention is on sensation. The mind is really, really tricky. It's always telling us stories, always. It's always trying to define what our experience is. It tell us what this is. You can never really trust the mind. So sensation helps us move away from conceptuality. Joseph Goldstein talks about bare attention. It's that quality of just being with sensation, nothing else. And as we develop the meditation on sensation, so it's working with breath, but it's also just opening up to the body. Either you're moving through in a dictated manner, if you will, from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet and back up, or you're specifically going into areas of the body, or you're just opening up to sensation in general. So there's different ways of working with this, with sensation, but it gets us away. It gets us away from thinking, but it also opens us up to the energetic experience of who we are, of our body, of our conditioning. In the Vipassana practices where you're spending a lot of time with sensation, you will have the Buddhists have a word called sankhara, and sankharas are mental formations based on conditioning, based on the past. So thought, karma, like, if you will, the habitual thought patterns that run through us again and again are sankharas. And when we work with sensation, when we work with the body, we begin to discover these sankharas, these habitual energetic patterns in our body that are stored in our body. In modern day psychotherapy, although I won't really talk about it because I don't know that much about it, but I do know that with the work of people like Wilhelm Reich, I believe, and later on there was the Lomi method. Anyway, there's a whole branch. I think Wilhelm Reich, I think he was a student of Freud, or he studied with Freud. Anyway, he moved his psychotherapy into sensation, to working with sensation, to working with the body. And it's the discovery that our conditioning and our emotional history is stored in the body. So whether we're working with thought, right, whether we're working with mental states, whether we're working with feelings, we're always working with ourselves, and we're always working with our conditioning, and we're always working with our patterns. And so we're learning to see the pattern for the pattern. And when we see that, then there is a freedom that is developed because we don't take the pattern to be real. We don't identify with it as being us. We see it as a pattern. But that's just not a conceptuality. That's insight. That's a seeing. This is thought. This is emotion. And in that seeing, there's this clarity that comes up. And in that clarity, that is the movement towards freedom. That is the movement towards wisdom. That is the movement towards understanding. So one of the ways is sensation. So we're working with sensation. We're going into the body. And when we're going into the body, when we're going into sensation, we're going into energetic formations. And in a way, I don't want to say it's better, but in a way, it allows us to have a direct experience of our conditioning without trying to figure it out with our mind. Oh, I think this is this. I think this is this. Instead, with the power of attention, the power of samadhi, the power of focused attention, we go into the energetic experience of the body, and the sankharas that are there begin to reveal themselves. So there's that. It's a very, very deep way of purification. It is. It's with the power of attention, we're going into these energetic knots. And the attention itself, the deep observation itself, somehow allows these energetic knots to free up. It's the power of attention, the power of awareness. So what typically happens when we're working with sensation? We're working with the breath. We start with the breath, and then we work with sensations in the body. And when we do that meditation where there's a body scan, usually by the end of that meditation, people feel really good, right? You feel there's a flow, there's a deep relaxation, there's a energy that comes from that. Because what we're doing with our focused attention is we are moving through and freeing up energetic patterns. Just watching the breath, right? Just watching the breath move through the body. There's a calm that comes from that. There's an opening that comes from that. There's an unbinding. It's an unbinding through the power of breath, through the power of attention. So we work with sensation, we use sensation as a method of developing a deep calm and the flow in the energetic body. And I also think that it's very, very healing. Very healing, because it's when we talk about the flow of energy, I think we're also talking about the movement of blood and fluids and connections in the nervous system that are allowed to work in the way that they should work. It helps regulate function. I think it helps regulate function. That's what acupuncture is doing. A lot of the energetic modalities. The other thing, of course, that happens, and you experience this more if you're doing deeper practice, is that you are spending time with the body, and then you hit a sankhara, you hit a formation, you hit a karmic formation, you hit a conditioning that is very deep. And it can rush up to the surface or rush up into your field of awareness. And all of a sudden you feel maybe a strong emotion. But if we can, with that experience, in that experience, we stay with sensation. We stay with the sensation of it. So we develop, we're talking skillful means. So with the meditation practices, there's different approaches, right? We're all working within the context of the same practice, if you will, but there's various parts to it or different ways to work with. So this evening, we're talking about sensation, working with sensation. And so when something does come up, it's because we're connecting with it. It's not because you're a crappy meditator. People are like, oh, I was doing good and then I lost it. No, you connected with something. You connected with something. And then, if we can, we stay with the sensation of it. Just the experience of sensation. So there's a negative emotion, jealousy. Anger, anxiety. Just feel it. Don't be afraid to feel it. That's what happens a lot, right? Is we don't want to feel it because it's uncomfortable. We don't want to feel it because it's uncomfortable. So we develop the ability, the capacity to work with sensation. We do that in our meditation. And from that, we learn a lot about ourselves. We learn a lot about ourselves. And right at that moment of the awareness touching the sensation, if we're really, really quiet and open, then it can tell us a very, very deep story about our experience, about who we are. So we inhabit these bodies, right? We experience the world through our mind and through our sense doors. And we think we're this body. But if we're just with the experience of it, it can open up. With the experience of sensation, it can open up another way of viewing that. It's also just in terms of cultivating one's practice, cultivating one's mindfulness, cultivating one's sanity, if you will. It's really interesting just to go back to sensation, whatever experience you're in. Sitting in your car, sitting in an office, sitting at home. You wake up in the morning, you're having your tea or your coffee. Just sit with sensation for a minute. Develop that relationship. what if none of your thoughts really mattered and there was just this experience, a sensation, a body?